Yes, I hit my rock bottom just under 12 years ago, whereby everything that I had come into contact with, as in assets, monies, you name it, insurance policies, investments, that sadly I squandered with the hope that, one day I'll hit that big win and pay off all my debt and of course flourish my family with all the richness money can buy and live happily ever after. But sadly, today I realize I was just chasing shadows, that even if I did hit that big one, which in my opinion we all strive towards, that big jackpot, the sad thing is I do not believe that I would have stopped. Why? Because enough is never enough to Poobie as an addict. I need more and more and more. That's the reality of this. So even if I hit the big one, I would be chasing for a bigger one. And the end result, I believe truly, wouldn't have been where it was in my case. Would have been worse, as in suicide.
Imagine being left with 3 possibilities in your life: insanity, prison, or suicide. The triangle of chaos slowly tightening its noose around your neck. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Poobie Moodley had exhausted all options, and now he had to make his choice. Poobie made that choice. He decided to take accountability for his gambling and alcohol addiction. He is now 32 years sober and 11 years, 7 months, and 18 days without a bet. He is heavily involved in Gamblers Anonymous in Johannesburg, and in this 2-part series, Poobie firstly walks me through his interactions with all 3 horrific possibilities, the triangle of chaos. And in part 2, we discover his triumphant return to sobriety and the steps that he took to turn his life around. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Poobie, welcome to the Expect Performance podcast. Lovely to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. Poobie, you've got a story to share. I mean, your life, everybody's life is somewhat of a roller coaster, but I can't help but feel that yours is a little more than most. So can you give me some context for your life and why we find ourselves chatting here today?
Okay. In my opinion, yes, I had a reach out from somebody which led to you. You called me, and I'm of the opinion that it is to do with gambling addiction. And yes, I'm somebody that comes from that past, as in a background, whereby, I messed up big time. Gambling had me licked. I couldn't control. It controlled me. And sadly, it took me to places that today I would never want to go back. Self-destruction, loss of family members, loss of respect, loss of personality, dishonesty. At one point, yes, I was a total honest person, good personality. All of those things went out the window, again, due to the gambling addiction. But I always say, change only happens if I choose to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes, and I'm thankful. Yes, I hit my rock bottom just under 12 years ago, whereby everything that I had come into contact with, as in assets, monies, you name it, insurance policies, investments, that sadly I squandered with the hope that, one day I'll hit that big win and pay off all my debt and of course flourish my family with all the richness money can buy and live happily ever after. But sadly, today I realize I was just chasing shadows, that even if I did hit that big one, which in my opinion we all strive towards, that big jackpot, the sad thing is I do not believe that I would have stopped. Why? Because enough is never enough to Poobie as an addict. I need more and more and more. That's the reality of this. So even if I hit the big one, I would be chasing for a bigger one. And the end result, I believe truly, wouldn't have been where it was in my case. Would have been worse, as in suicide, as in, as I say, taking my life, being totally insane, because no normal person does these type of things. You know, at the time, it sounds good, it sounds real, for the mere fact that yes, I do not believe that I would be able to get caught. And more importantly, my idea is to put back whatever I've taken. In fact, the word is not taken, it's theft. Because the reality is, in my case, being married in community or property, whatever belongs to me belongs to my better half, and likewise, vice versa. But did I ever seek permission in what I was doing? Absolutely not. Did I seek permission whenever I was extending overdraft facilities, applying for different credit cards? No. But end results, had I defaulted, which I did at one point, chances are very strong that sadly my better half would have to take the rap. But yeah, at that time, again, I speak for me, it just makes so much sense for me to extend the overdraft with the hope that, yeah, today would be different. But today I've realized what makes me think today would be different. Had it been different, it would have been different to me, as in Poobie, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So yeah, there's no different day. Gambling, sadly, is something that controlled me, and I couldn't control it. There was never a time where I would say enough is enough. I need to stop. There were alarm bells all over on my journey, as in active addiction. But did I take heed to it? Absolutely not. Again, for the mere fact, number one, that this is a hidden illness. There is no visual signs that when I came home after a crazy loss, that my wife would have been able to say, "Hey, why are you looking so glum? Or why is this? Why is that?" I always say, me as in Poobie, I had a dual personality. I knew when to say what to whom and when. And sadly, my better half had to bear the brunt of my behavior, not forgetting my kids, my parents, my siblings, and of course, friends, even banks for that matter. Because at a point, I was well respected. Why? Because I was a honest person. Nobody gets up, in terms of birth and believes, what, I'm an addict. No, sadly, it's a process whereby it starts as a habit or a social thingy whereby, okay, I'll go to the casino, I'm just going to play a thing or two, end up with a few rands in the pocket, think, wow, no more, I'll go back in another year's time. No, unfortunately, it's progressive in its nature. It starts on a social level with me. It then became a habit. And sadly, that habit developed into an addiction. Again, I didn't realize it initially. But doing the things that I did, as I say, there were alarm bells. Hey, do you not believe you are messing up? Do you not believe you're touching things that don't belong to you? Do you not believe you're actually thieving, you frauding paperwork in order to get these things from the banks, from the institute, even friends for that matter? But yeah, at the time, nothing makes sense beside me getting hold of monies. I always say, it's very easy to stop gambling. Why do I say that? When I have no money, there's no way I can gamble because gambling requires money. The challenge comes in when payday kicks in or when money comes into my possession. And yeah, there were many a times I had some substantial wins. What did I choose to do? I never chose to share a dime with my lovely family. I never share a dime with my lovely four kids, my parents, my siblings, or even to uplift myself as a person in terms of going and just having a lavish shopping spree. Nothing of that sort. I chose to put it away. Why? Because I needed more tomorrow. Because the idea was that today I've managed to attain a system. So all I can do now is wait for tomorrow dawn to break so I can implement this system, thinking, yeah, placing bigger bets in a shorter period of time allows me to win bigger. But sadly, that wasn't the case. Because even if I won, I would go further, thinking I'm going to double it. I always say I would try to make it into 2 loaves. And when I got 2 loaves, I decided, why not? Let's make it to 4 loaves. And that mindset carried on. Sometime it would even go to 20, 50 loaves. But did I choose to walk away thinking or saying to myself, thank you, I've at least got some funds whereby I can do X, Y, and Z, pay this, that, and the other. Having 4 kids is no easy game. In the terms of times of their schooling, everything needed to be bought in twos. And of course, at a point, I was very comfortable. I had no reason to gamble in order to come up with more monies to pay an account, a municipal bill, or even the kids' school fees, or even shopping for them regarding schooling. But yeah, sadly, this addiction, at least with me, gives me the thought on that first win. Why do I need to go to work? Why do I need to stay in my business when I can go to a casino or horse racing or even a sport event for that matter? That in a few hours I'd be able to get my entire month's salary. And wow, I don't need to work for the rest of the month. That's the mindset Poobie had. And I personally believe
Yeah.
this is the mindset with those that have the problem with regards to gambling as an addiction. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight. But if there's any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, probably something that comes to mind immediately is to take you back to one of your original points is the link between something like suicide and gambling addiction, which is statistically, unfortunately, quite high. When people, gambling addicts, don't see a way out, the suicide rate amongst people with gambling addiction is very high. Can you shed some light onto that low point in your addiction journey and why it was that you decided to take the more positive route?
Thank you, Clinton. Yeah, I speak for me. As I say, I continued doing this over and over and over, expecting a different result. And sadly, as I say, the result I was expecting was nowhere near what came to me. What came to me was nothing but poverty, poverty, and more poverty. In other words, I was a pauper in the true sense. For somebody who had it all that most people would desire in their lives, I was blessed. God had blessed me with a lovely family, a beautiful better half, a lovely home, business, extended family, you name it. But sadly, getting involved in this addiction stripped me of everything. And yeah, it came to a point whereby, as I say, I squandered everything that came in my path. I was a manipulator. Manipulator in the sense that I knew exactly how to say things to whoever concerned, with one goal in mind, that was to either get that overdraft, that extended loan, that personal loan, whatever it took. And sadly, with me, in time, it all came to a cul-de-sac where everything was closing down on me. Example, I took or asked Joan, would you be able to help me with X, Y, and Z? With a good heart, Joan would say, yes. How much would you need, Poobie? Because of the path that I had come from, which was honesty, reliability, personality, and all of those things. And John would say, yes. I would then, with the intent of paying, of course, I would end up paying John. Sadly, the next time around, I do the same. Joan, again, with a good heart, would say, yeah, no problem. This time, probably a big amount because I kept my promise. Sadly, this time around, it's not working. Why? Because I ended up losing. Even if I didn't lose immediately, I ended up winning, but never knowing when to stop. I could have paid Joan 10 times over and said thank you. But no, Poobie was striving for 20 times in order to pay Joan, pay Paul or Peter or Harry. And yeah, this was a constant thing in my mind. Again, if it wasn't Joan, it was Harry. If it wasn't Harry, it was Paul. And yeah, there were times where I used Paul to pay Harry or Peter to pay Paul. And that was a complete trend in my life. Until, of course, it got to a level where I wasn't able to pay Joan, Peter, Paul, Harry, and. Now I'm hiding away from phone calls because now they want to know because they have overheads, they have things to take care in life, although we're friends or family. And of course, what did I choose to do? Because I have no answer. It's either when I answered the call, not a problem, Joan, but I'm going to sort it out in the weekend. I know there's no way. I'm playing again with the idea that I'm going to now use whoever in order to get some funds or whatever. So that now my intention is to win so I can pay these people. As I say, it's a vicious circle. I end up winning, but I never know when to stop. That's an addict mind, at least for me. And again, I tend to generalize because again, I'm in contact with many thousands of other men and women around the world with this addiction, but sadly had made a choice of change. But with regards to your question, slowly but surely everything started closing down. There was nobody I could use. There was no bank that wanted to touch me. I always say, I came to a point where nobody wanted to touch Poobie with a lamppost. That's fact. I'm not ashamed to say it, but that's the truth. Why? Because of my behavior. Why? Because of my wrongdoings. And of course, that's when insanity grips, in the sense that no normal person would have done what an addict like Poobie has done in active addiction. Again, the mind only focuses on the money. And yeah, it definitely came to the point of prison, I might add, or suicide. And I always say, I did the crime, now I need to do the time. I'm fortunate, I'm thankful, I feel blessed that I was able to do the time under my roof, at my pace, and freedom. Sadly, there's a lot of people that's doing time behind prison bars because of gambling. And yeah, in as far as suicide, absolutely a given factor. I was on the doorstep of suicide. When I say that in truth, because I had come to a point where I had squandered everything in my life. Everything. I used every person that came in my path for the wrong reasons. I had lost dear friends. I had lost family members who didn't, as I say, didn't want to have anything to do with me. And yeah, suicide was my only way out. At least at that time, that's what this mind of Poobie had taught me. Having 4 kids didn't matter to me. That's the sad thing. I was there, but I was never there in person. I was there just as a figure. And yeah, I didn't think about my 4 kids. I didn't think about my beautiful better half, who is a daughter of some other parent who was, believed strongly that marrying me, I would be able to give her the life that they had given. But sadly, my addiction took me to another level. And as I say, suicide was the right thing at that time in my mind, thinking it was the right thing, not thinking about the consequences. Had I stepped that mark, I can tell you now, today I've realized I would have left a lifelong scar on my 4 beautiful kids, my better half, my parents, and my siblings. Sadly, that scar will never, ever go away. With time, they'll be able to live with it, but they'll never, ever forget it. Because today I do come in contact with people who say to me, you know what, my dad took his life because of gambling. My mom, my brother, my sister, and 10, 11, 15, 20 years down the line, they still live with that scar. So yeah, it's a given factor. Gambling takes you to two or if not three places. Insanity, because we do things that no normal person would do. We cross that invisible line timelessly. Prison, as I've just explained, on its way if I didn't stop. And of course, suicide. I'm just so eternally grateful, and I say this with a lot of venom, that my higher power I call as the God of my understanding. He saved me on the nick of time. I had it so well planned. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I squandered all the policies that I had, all the investments for my kids regarding schooling, university, you name it. Somehow, I have no idea how I was left with one policy. Today, when I do the math, I believe at the time I didn't find the actual document. And when I realized this policy was the only one that was up and running, I thought to myself, wow, at least by me taking my life, my kids, my family would be able to live happily ever after with the proceeds. Because at that time, suicide policies wouldn't pay out. So I had it so well planned that it wouldn't look like suicide. But again, I say, I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful that yes, at my worst level in life, God came to my rescue. And I believe today, His reason is that my work on earth is unfinished. Not just me, all those that had chosen recovery over and above active addiction, as in gambling, that our work on earth is unfinished. Because if I don't pass on what went down in my life, in my opinion, I live by the fact that knowledge is not knowledge if it's not passed on. Because the place that I had come from, there's thousands out there that is battling, not knowing how, not knowing what to do. And the sad thing, in my opinion, gambling is actually worse than the COVID pandemic that we encountered. Sadly, in my opinion, this is a pandemic over and above the COVID pandemic. That, yeah, the saddest thing is that the youth of today, the poorest of the poor, the richest of the rich, the average person is sadly getting sucked in. Why? In my days, I had to make an excuse at home. Babes, I'll be back just now. Where am I heading? Obviously to the casino or the night racing. And many a times there were arguments. And of course, I looked at the argument because it gave me an ideal opportunity to burst out of the house. Why? Because you argue. I want to go and blow out some steam. So I used that as a platform to get out of jail-free card, meaning from home. Not realizing I've got 4 small kids at home. And yeah, what was the outcome? Again, enough never ever being enough. To me, as in Poobie, there were many occasions where I had won before I lost. Why? Because I believed I've got a system in place. Things are going my way. Why do I need to stop? And there were some substantial amounts of wins that I had given away within the next hour or so. Again, that's an addict mind. For the record, I am a recovering alcoholic. And it's just over 32 years since my last drink. But it's the same thing. One drink to Poobie is too many and 1,000 is too few. Likewise, one bet to me is too many and 1,000 bets is too few. I need more and more and more till death do us part. And this time, I believe strongly, for me to place a bet is debt. Nothing beyond that, debt. That is the reason I always embrace myself with gratitude. I'm thankful, I'm eternally grateful for the fact that I have a roof over my head, a lovely family that I can come back to at a point. My family was on knife edge, not knowing if they're going to be with me or not with me. Being married 31 years didn't even occur to me. All I did was give my family nothing but nightmare. If it wasn't the alcohol, it was the gambling. Thankfully, I'd managed to take care of in terms of addressing my alcohol problem. But sadly, gambling had me licked. No matter what I tried, I failed dismally. The sad thing is, in my opinion, with gambling, the mindset is tomorrow is going to be another day. It's going to be a different day. And sadly, this is what takes, I use the word us, takes us to places that we do not wish to want to go back to, or never wished why we had to went there. But that's the sad reality. So yeah, absolutely. Insanity, prison, suicide is a given factor should Poobie have not addressed his problem. I hope that makes
Poobie,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. Something that you alluded to there with your struggles with addiction, both with alcohol and with gambling. And it seems to me, reading between the lines, that you were able to crack the alcohol side of it first and found it more difficult to break the code on the gambling, so to speak. Why do you think that was from your personal experience? Because there's no physiological addiction to something like gambling. You know, alcohol, once you become an alcoholic, there's a physical dependence on that alcohol. So the body will shut down in severe cases if you don't continue to give it alcohol, which is not the case with gambling. There's no physical dependence or threat on your life if you stop gambling that your body is going to shut down. So why do you think in your case it was more challenging to cut out the gambling as opposed to the alcohol?
Thank you, Clinton. Again, this is my opinion. Gambling is a hidden illness, number one. Gambling is an emotional illness, number two. And when I say emotional, it plays mind games. Like in the days of my alcoholism, I needed a drink to survive. Yes, I needed to gamble to survive. But the difference is survival, meaning that mythical dream that I'm going to win in order to pay Paul, Peter, Harry, pay the school fees, or pay the rent, or pay the municipal bill. But sadly, because of it being an emotional illness, it gets you to a level where you do not accept enough is enough. You just continue. The same with my alcohol. I mean, I continued to an extent that it was either me that passed out or the bottle was finished. And sadly, in those days, there's only places where hidden shebeens, not that there isn't, but there was a very minimum amount of shebeens. There were, cut-off times with bottle stores, pubs, you name it. Today it's open. You can sit on an app, you can order a drink and have it at home. Yeah, but at the same time, whenever I passed out, I couldn't drink anymore because I was passed out. The sad thing with gambling, many a times when I lost, I always made a plan. And there were no visual signs. Today I stand firmly to say and make a bold statement. My wife knows me better than I know myself. You know why? Plenty of times, whenever there was something that went down, I hid something. She caught me out. But being the manipulator that I was, I knew exactly how to get out of jail. And there were times she believed me. There were times she didn't believe me, many a times. And yeah, when I got caught out, I always came on my knees, babes, forgive me, I'll never gamble again. But the moment I laid in bed, I had forgotten about the promise I had pledged to her. All that matters to me because she has no idea about the losses I encountered. Even when she did catch me out, babes, I just lost a few rand. In the meantime, I've lost a substantial amount of money. And that was the norm. It just carried on and on. As I say, there's no visual signs. When I was in alcoholism, active, when I came home, she could see I'm already bombed. You could see that I'm not
Yeah.
walking straight. My speech is slurry. There's lots of visible signs. But with gambling, in my opinion, it took me 4 decades plus before signs were starting to show. In other words, cracks were starting to open up. Why? Because the pressure was coming down on me. I couldn't run from this illness anymore. I couldn't hide from it. I had to face up. I had to man up. I had to own up. And of course, I had to pay up. But all of these things never just come at the time. These things came in now, as in me not placing the bet, that I've realized this is what I did at the time. So yeah, the fact that there's no physical signs, absolutely. There's emotional signs. Sometimes the wife would say, why are you looking like this? No, I had a bad day at the business. Oh, customers are not paying me on time. I got to pay rent and I don't know what to do. In the meantime, I had 10 times the rent earlier in the day, but I had squandered it.
Mm.
So, yeah, I'm hoping that answers your question.
Yeah, it absolutely does, Poobie. I want to pitch this question to you. The gambling industry has taken a dramatic turn since COVID. You brought up COVID earlier with respect to online gambling, sports betting apps. I mean, the budgets that they have are seemingly insurmountable when you look at the number of sports betting apps that are sponsors of teams in the Premier League. If you look locally and all our different sports teams here, etc., etc. So it no doubt has been a booming industry since COVID. In your opinion, do you think that you would have been able to survive your gambling addiction had you had such easy access to things like the sports betting apps that we now have today?
A definite no. And I mean that sincerely. A definite no. As I said earlier, I had to pick up fights to get out of the house in order to go and gamble at night. Even during the day, sometime I would gamble through the entire night, forgetting tomorrow morning the kids need to go to school. And what was I doing? I was busy in the casino. My wife would call me 10 times, 20 times. Where are you? Where are you? I'm coming just now. And yeah, end result, I know by 1 o'clock in the morning, she's not going to call anymore. Why? Because she needs to sleep so that she'll be able to take care of the kids in the morning. I'm rocking up 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. Kids were supposed to be taken to school at 7. And of course, she had to do the job by taking them to school. And yeah, I had to face the brunt. Again, hits the roof, where were you? Blah, blah, blah. And that was, a continuous trend. Had I had access, of course, there wasn't any online gambling. Online was in those days, if I could think carefully, it was either me calling the bookmaker, listening to a commentary, or finding out what the results were. Sadly today, and I say this strongly, sadly today, one can sit in front of the loved ones on a phone, on a computer. What are you doing? No, I'm just touching base with some friends. I'm chatting with this person. In the meantime, what are you really doing? You're busy gambling. I know of people who go into showers for an hour, if not more, not having a shower, but busy gambling. Why? Because they don't want the family to see what's happening. Coming out of the shower, just a little wet, in order to say, no, I was busy in the shower. Same thing. I know of members, say people, that acknowledged that, yeah, I go under a blanket with my device so that the light doesn't shine at night and my husband doesn't see that I'm gambling. But I am gambling till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I know of members, again, persons, who gamble till 6 in the morning, have a quick shower, off they go to work. So what am I saying? Today, gambling is easily accessible. I can sit in front of my boss. What are you doing? No, I'm just checking with some clients. What am I really doing? I'm busy placing bets. Likewise, you mentioned football, Premier League. I love sport. Sport was one of the things that took me to the cleaners as well, that at a point I gambled on sport, not even understanding the sport, but believing the odds on that event is going to win me money, only to realize it didn't work. In the good old days, when I say good old days, I mean real good old days, when there was an odds-on favorite, be it the horse racing, be it a football game, you could bond your house and you can take it back tomorrow. Why? Because it's almost a guaranteed win. Sadly, that's no longer the case. As I say, as you mentioned, there's betting sites that's popping up left, right, and center. Premier League, I love the football. I stopped watching sport for 3 years because it was a big trigger for me. Watching sport in the days of my active addiction was not about watching who played the best. It was about me focusing on my bet, immaterial of who it was. Today, sadly, you can place a bet on every bat of the ball in cricket, every kick of the ball in football, and. Now, if I had to do the math, I can tell you now, if there was somebody close to me and said, Poobie, how much would you like? I would have said, give me 10K. How much would you like? Give me 100K. I would have blown up millions in one day, believing that my luck is going to change. That was my mindset in the past. Thankfully, I say that with huge respect to many out there that's suffering. Sadly, I wasn't exposed to those kinds of money lenders. I was introduced to them. But somewhere along the line, I'm so thankful that I never used that get out of jail free card. Because today, I do not believe I would have been here because I would have just taken sky's the limit. I was introduced by a friend, sadly he's late, that knew everything about horse racing. When I say everything, I mean everything. He knew the owners, he knew the jockeys, he knew the stable guys, he knew the partners, you name it. And very often I would be sitting with him in the bookmakers or the race course, and he'll tell me, Poobie, hang on. He'll make 20, 25, 30 calls, and I mean this. Then he'd say to me, Poobie, the top one, or Poobie, the second one, or Poobie, stay out of it, just have a friendly bet. Even with those type of information, I came short, including him. Because of every 5, 3 would come home. And just when you believe the other 2 is going to come home, you end up putting your house on. Literally your house, because you believe, wow, how can we go wrong? If 3 came home, the 4th one's going to have to come home. That's when, as an addict, you strive to put more. Only end result, sadly, we've lost. And yeah, regarding online, you go on a phone, at least I'm a little from old school. I go on a phone every now and again, there's a gambling app popping up. I watch TV today. I enjoy the sport for the sake of the sport, not for the sake of the bet. Every now and again, there's an online gambling app, site that pops up. And of course, the same with the alcohol. I always say to myself, what do? Do I now decide to break the TV because there's an ad of Anacam or whatever's alcohol that's there, or even a gambling site? No. Today, I find ways to cope with it. So the bottle stores never closed because Poobie stopped gambling. They actually expanded. Likewise, when Poobie stopped gambling, casinos never closed down, and bookmakers and horse racing and sport, it actually excelled to another level. So it's about me handling and having the coping skills today, which is not easy, but it's a process, and I need to trust the process. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does. When you see these temptations, like the different ads for the sporting betting apps and that, is it water off a duck's back, or do you find that there's still the temptation when you are constantly having that advertised and at the forefront of your TV screens on a daily basis?
As I said with me, Clinton, I stopped watching sport for the benefit of myself, firstly, and of course, my family. Because it all starts with me. Had I continued, I would never have had a family. I would never have had work, extended family, parents, you name it. So it starts with me because, yeah, I was the one that self-destructed, but sadly, not realizing that I'm dragging my family with. Not realizing at the point, but that is the reality of this addiction. We affect between 16 to 22 people within our circle in this addiction. So it just continued and continued. But end of the day, only I could make the next right decision. And when it comes to what you're just asking, initially it's an uphill battle. With me it became a little easier because I wasn't watching sport anymore, so I couldn't focus on the odds. That was something that I needed to implement for the benefit of myself. Had I been watching sport, I can tell you now, maybe tonight I would get away. Maybe the next week I'd get away. All I needed, because again, in my opinion, an addict will find any given opportunity where an addict behavior will pop up. Example, I may not have a good day at work or at the business. Maybe I've had a fallout with my wife. Something never went my way. A week or 2 weeks down the line, I find it an ideal opportunity. You know what? Let me just de-stress. Because again, I was in love with gambling. I was in a love affair over and above my marriage. To be honest, my gambling meant more to me than my marriage. That's the sad, but it's the reality. So being in love with this addiction was hard. It's like anybody being in love with somebody. It's a hard one to walk away. And when you do decide to walk away, the pain is immense. So how do I get over that pain? By implementing certain measures. I chose to stop watching sport. Of course, after that, sport didn't stop. But now I'm in a position to watch it and enjoy it for the game, not thinking about the odds. The same with the alcohol. It was a hard one. In the beginning, everybody feels it hard. So we call it, or at least in my opinion, it's called safety measures. If I don't implement those safety measures, sadly, I'm going to be exposed to it. And by being exposed to it, it's just a matter of time before I go back. There's many out there that stops. And then they would reach out to me, hey, Poobie, I've relapsed. And this is a continuous trend. Not with everybody would, but with most. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that one is not implementing safety measures. I, for one, live not far from a casino. It used to be my daily route, almost. And of course, in the beginning, it was a hard one because whenever I looked at it, no matter what I had in mind was out of the window. I was at the casino. Likewise, when I was driving, and of course, in most main roads, there would be placards attached to the poles. And I would read while I'm driving. And the moment my eye set onto a placard, which was racing, as in horse racing related, no matter what I had planned in the day, it was out of the window. I was either at the bookmaker, the tote office, or the race course, thinking I'm going to spend an hour, make a few bets, and I'm gone back to work. Unfortunately, nothing worked that way. I was doing, I was just justifying, if that's the word, why I needed to place the bet, and of course, justify the fact that in an hour I'm back at work. But it never worked that way. I ended up spending the entire day, the entire evening, sometime late at night before I'd come home. So yeah, sadly, this is something that grips me rather than it, or I gripped it. So yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. Poobie, what about beginner's luck? Because you know that nobody goes into gambling, nobody goes into a casino when they go the first time thinking, geez, I'm gonna be at risk of gambling my life away and and ruining my marriages and my relationships with my kids. But it seems to me that people go in there, there's beginner's luck, they make some money, or they go there with a friend, they don't even gamble themselves, they watch their friend make some money, and then they think, wow, this is exactly what you alluded to earlier. This person's just made their salary in the space of 2 hours. When you first encountered a casino, what was that interaction like? And then a follow-up to that question might be, at what point then did you start to think, okay, actually this has developed into something a bit more sinister?
Okay, with the question of beginner's luck, that's what got me gripped. I had the same. made money, like I've said earlier, and thinking, wow, this is the best thing that could happen. Beats working, beats doing whatever for the entire day. And sadly, not all of us are of an addict mind. As I always say, it's progressive in its nature. It's like anything. You get a person that perhaps have first puff of a cigarette and then realizes, hey, but was okay for now, but I don't believe this is for me. But yeah, on the other hand, you may find somebody who has that puff and believes, wow, this thing is cool, man. Let me now smoke, but I won't smoke X amount. I'll just casually smoke. Same thing with the gambling. And yeah, having that thought level, beginner's luck. I've, strangely you mentioned being there with a friend, watching the friend. I've had many that acknowledge I was there. This is how it started. I've been with a friend. And of course, sooner or later, I realized, wow, why not? Some of them didn't even play with the friend, but hid and went back there thinking that, you know what? I don't want my friend to know that I've done the same. And yeah, beginner's luck. Sadly, that's what gets you linked into this, in my opinion. It's either the beginner's luck or the first loss that I ended up chasing shadows for all my life. And the strangest thing with me, I chased my losses, which I lost yesterday. Forgetting about last week's, forgetting about last month's, forgetting about last year, forgetting about the last 10, 20, whatever years of my losses. And one could do the math if you put two and two together in terms of the time that I was in active addiction. But sadly, this is not about the money. As I said earlier, if I had access to 100 million, I would have squandered 100 million. Fact. So it's not about the money, because the next person's 50K is that person's 100 million. The next person's 300K is that person's 100 million. Because if they got access to 100, they would have went there. If they got access to whatever, they would have went there. But sadly, in time, it comes to a cul-de-sac where people don't trust you, banks don't trust you because of your pattern of payment. Nobody wants to give you any money. So you come to a point, now you start thinking, what do I do next? That's when we go into personal loans, loan sharks, because again, they break your kneecap, some of them. Some of them, yeah, it's by word of mouth. But that's where a lot of us end up. And the sad thing is, it comes to a point where we can't pay anymore. And what happens? That's when everything's coming down. That's when suicide becomes a real factor. And prison. Why do I say prison? I could tell you now, had I been working for whichever company, and the point where I had reached, which was total self-destruction and nothing more, I can tell you now, I would have did whatever it took in order to commit fraud at the company. Be it taking or getting access to funds, be it thieving with, valuable items. And what would have been the end result? Getting caught, facing jail time. So yeah, sadly, this is one of the most insidious, baffling, cunning, and powerful illness. In my opinion, I believe strongly it is much more powerful in terms of alcoholism, drugs, or other addictions for that matter. Sadly, drugs, alcohol, and gambling are the first top three on the list in terms of addiction. But there's many other addictions as well. I mean, gambling, drugs, alcohol. On the other hand, you may have somebody who's overeating, somebody that's indulging in chocolate, somebody that's indulging in pornography, somebody that's indulging in sex. Oh, all of these things, it's an addiction to a point. And then you realize, hey, I can't stop. I mean, one would go to extremes. I can tell you now, I've picked up, I always say, cross addiction. It's there. It's just a matter of time before it nicks me. Why? Because gambling is a compulsive behavior. In other words, I just went on and on and on. I know a couple that spent 23 days in a casino nonstop. I'm serious. 23 days, leaving the kids locked in a flat. Sadly, the neighbors stepped in. Law enforcement were involved. That the kids were removed from their custody, put into a safe home. I'm not sure where. And the only way was for them to go through 23 days, which they shared in an honest way. And that is the drug of their choice kept them alive. I believe it's called meth. That, of course, one could go on for hours without blinking an eye in terms of being tired. And that's how, again, they had a dual addiction. With me, with the compulsive behavior that I have, recently, as in, I would say anything up to a year, I've picked up a chocolate addiction. Whereby today, when I buy chocolates, and I mean this in a true sense, definitely I can see you having a smile, but that is reality. Today, I've got the exact same behavior that I had when I was in active addiction with gambling. In the sense that, yeah, when I go shopping and I see, I'm talking about a Cadbury, the big bar, which is 150 grand. When I see this on special, I don't buy one or two. I end up buying them by the boxes that the teller would ask me, but are you selling this? I say, no, I'm eating it. They look at me with the baby blue eyes and I said, yes, I'm eating it. Very often, stores have restrictions, but I would go the extra mile, speaking to the manager, listen, this is for me, which is the truth. I'm not buying it to sell. And I would stash it in my home. And I mean it. I would hide it. Why? Because I don't want my wife or anybody else to get hold of my stash. Again, same like the good old days behavior, hiding the money. Same here, hiding the chocolate. Because at night when I relax in bed watching TV, it's like a given fact. I have to have the chocolate. And if I don't, it's like something missing in me. So again, cross addiction.
Yeah.
Very easy because again, you don't just become a gambling addict. It's a process. And when you reach that invisible line called addiction in gambling, it's almost a point of no return. It needs a lot of effort from you to be honest and say, I got a problem. And not many out there because firstly, we're afraid what's going to happen at home. My wife is going to tell me, there's the door. Don't walk, run. I'm going to end up in a divorce. My parents are going to disown me. And. But what worked for me, and it was a long journey of active addiction, but what worked for me is when I lost everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. I was somebody at the time, I used to smoke 2 packets of cigarette, which was Camel. Again, wanted to smoke the best, wanted to gamble like the Jones, wanted everything because again, the mindset is different. And when I stopped, I couldn't even afford to buy myself 1 packet of cigarettes. That my lovely better half and my widowed daughter had to put exactly 35 rand on my kitchen table so I could buy 1 packet of Camel. I'm talking roughly 12 years ago. And I needed to manage with that. Thankfully, today I don't smoke. But again, the reality is that's where it took me. Lost everything down to a pauper level. Not being able to know how I'm going to pay Paul, Peter, F&B, APSA, you name it. But I had to acknowledge to my family, yes, I didn't just open up. To be honest with you, I was caught out. I was caught out many a times. But again, I always had a line to run to cover my tracks. But this time I couldn't cover my tracks. What went down in Poobie's life? I lost everything. Everything. I was just laying in bed aimlessly until my wife said, listen, I think maybe you need a little bit of a holiday. Again, look at it coming from my wife, not understanding where I am because I covered my tracks so well. Maybe you need to just get away for a while. She booked me a ticket. Maybe you should just go to Durban, spend a bit of time maybe go and see families and come back. When you come back, hopefully things will, you'll be of a better mindset. Because she could see I was just lost, but not understanding why. And what did I do? Again, having no money, I was penniless. Whatever she had given me is what I had in my pocket. That wasn't a holiday. That was me doing an introspection of myself. Not a true one, but introspection in terms of how am I going to get out of this? I can't. And of course, as loving as she was, and still is, she would call me 10, 20 times in the day. Hi, what you doing? How's your day? Blah, blah, blah. Until about the third day, I got a call. Immediately, I knew something was wrong. Because, again, her tone of voice wasn't the same. What went down? Sadly, my son had mistakenly opened one of my bank statements. And what it was, the outcome was a credit card. Every entry on that credit card was nothing else but the casino and the bookmaker. Nothing else. And it was a crazy amount of money. But everything towards the bookmaker or the casino. Not even a 10 rand to say, okay, my dad stopped at the garage, he bought himself a Coke. Nothing. And that's when it hit the fan. And yeah, I told my wife, I said, babes, you know what? Just book me a ticket back. When I come home, we will talk. And of course, that's exactly what I did. I came home and I had to let the cat out of the bag. I had to play open cards. I had to be fully transparent. It wasn't a nice one. I can tell you now, my roof definitely came down. But it was the best thing that had worked. Because now I don't have to walk around with this hanging over. Not that she would pay or my kids would pay the debt. No, that was the past. I used everybody for the wrong reasons. I call it the bailout. The moment I got a bailout, nothing worked because it was a bailout. I never learned any lessons. This time around, by being honest, yes, it wasn't an easy place to be. My home for a period of time, even whilst having dinner, you could hear a pin drop. You know why? My kids couldn't believe what I was doing or did. My wife couldn't believe what I did. So there was no discussion around the table, no talk, because everybody was just saddened with my behavior. But what did I do? I took it with a pinch of salt. For the mere fact I constantly reminded myself, you did wrong. Nobody's going to forgive you overnight. Sadly, trust is out of the window, and that's fact. That's one of the first things that go out of the window when we start embezzling funds from different accounts, using things that's not ours, and trust is out of the window. And trust is not given, it's earned. And how do I earn it? By putting action into my new lifestyle, which is not placing a bet. And that's not something that happens in a week, a month, a year, or two. It's a process. Sometimes it could take months on it. Sometimes it could take years. I always, ask myself, how would I have faced an issue like mine in the home? Meaning that, for example, because again, this addiction has got no boundaries in terms of gender, age, discrimination in terms of, I'm sweeping the street, the next one is an attorney, this one's a doctor, no profession attached. And sadly, when it hits you, it hits you. And of course, playing open cards was the best thing that worked for me. And to become a better version of myself, I needed to do the next right thing. Not an easy one. It's a painful journey, but it does become easier. And in time, one does attain that trust in the home front, because it all starts from the home before it extends to the outside world. Whether it's the company that I work for, whether it's the business, whether it's the outside, meaning even my neighbor. Because sadly, this addiction takes us to places that even we use the neighbors for the wrong reasons. So yeah, I hope that answers
Probably,
your
I
question.
think, yeah, it absolutely does. I think something that your story, I think, is one that can hopefully provide hope to people who might be listening to this that are in a very dark situation themselves. What advice would you have in closing for somebody that's listening to this that in the back of their mind or even in the forefront of their mind have realized that they have a gambling addiction and it's something that they have to address if they're wanting to avoid those three inevitable outcomes as you've alluded to earlier? What advice would you have to say to them?
Okay, firstly, one, in my opinion, one needs to accept and admit I have a problem. As I say, you can run from this addiction, but you can't hide. One day is one day you're going to get caught up. That's fact. Just a matter of time. Very important. One needs to acknowledge, again, in my opinion, no matter how many times I warn, what did I really do with these funds? Did I pay my accounts? Did I pay this? Did I do this? Did I improve my home? Did I buy another car? All of these things. And if it's a no, yes, that's signs that I've got a problem. The other one is, have I crossed that invisible line whereby initially I gambled socially? I made some money, I lost some money. Excuse me. Then I started gambling. Sadly, I now am squandering my entire salary. Not just once, but it's happening frequently. The other thing is, I'm now starting to touch into things that don't belong to me. A lot of us justify I took. It's not about I took, it's about I stole. Because what doesn't belong to you, period, is being stolen. Same as I mentioned, married in community property. I took. It's not took, it's I stole. Only you, as in that person, can acknowledge that. And of course, accepting the fact that no matter how many times I've tried to stop, I just can't do it. There are people that tried. I said a week I never gambled and I went back. Again, in most cases, if we really do the math, why did I not gamble? This is often a given trend. During the month, most people don't have access to funds because salary only kicks in towards the end of the month. So it's easy to stop because there's no money. The challenge comes in towards the end of the month. Already a few days before, the mind is in operation. I'm just going to take a small portion of my money. I'm not going to gamble more. And I'm going to win a little and then I'm going to walk away. An addict mind don't operate like that. An addict mind justifies why I need to gamble. Just a portion. End result, what happens? I lose it all. Then now I'm digging into reserves. That's when there's a big alarm bell. I need to do something. And first and foremost, to all those out there, do not ever believe you're alone. There's others that got the same problem, sometimes worse, sometimes a little less. But again, it's not about the debt that we created. As I say, it's not about the money. It's about the destruction in and within ourselves. Because when I gamble, a lot of defects occurred within myself. I didn't just get up one day and say, I'm going to steal. It was an emotional thing that ran in my mind. Then I planned how I'm going to do this. So what happens? I call it character defects. I need to fix the dishonesty that's within myself. I need to fix the manipulation, the dual personality, walking around with the mask, the deceit, the mistrust. All of these things don't go away because I've stopped placing the bet. These things need to be addressed because, again, in my opinion, I say this, gambling is just a symptom. The problem is the behavior. So if I don't stop the behavior, there's no way I'm going to stop gambling. So my behavior needs to be addressed. Example, now I don't leave my home. Now I'm not sitting on my phone. Now I'm not going to sit 1 hour in the shower. Now I'm not making excuse. I'm watching a movie while everybody is sleeping, but in the meantime, I'm on my laptop or my phone. These are little things that I call action speaks louder than words, because nobody ends up trusting us overnight. It's a process. These are the action steps that one needs to implement in their lives. And by doing that, whatever we've lost, money is a material item. It's not easy. I have to work hard in order to pay back. These debts don't just vanish. Nobody raised a magic wand in front of me and said, Poobie, you're debt free. I had to work hard. It took me 9.5 years to pay back the monies that I had borrowed from banks, persons, you know. But again, I never had a sleepless night. Do you know why? Because I took accountability of my actions. Firstly, accountability to the people I owed money. Secondly, taking accountability of my actions within my family. The deceit, the lies, the manipulation, all of these things that today I'm proud to say I don't live in regret. I don't live in remorse or bitterness. I believe, to me, although my past was so bitter, that I believe there is life after addiction. And I pray that we all find it. I don't live there. I'm thankful that I lost all my money. It may sound a cliche, but it's the fact. I'm thankful for my past, that I messed up. Today, those things is what gave me a lesson to take to implement in my part today. Today, it's not about the money I acquire in my life. It's about the legacy. That if I can do it, anybody else can do it. Sometimes we just need to dig deep enough. We all got what it takes. But sadly, we get clouded with this picture in our mind. How do I come out of it? What do I do? What do I say to my wife? What do I say to my husband? But I always say, for as long as I am truthful as in being honest, my higher power as in the God of my understanding, he comes in and he fills in those blanks. Life throws us curveballs. Doesn't mean today I'm not gambling, that I'm living in a most beautiful life. I am beautiful, absolutely. But there are life's challenges that comes in between. And I've had a fair share whilst not gambling. That today I say my best day in gambling is nowhere compared to my worst day in recovery. Because today I'm of a clear mind. I address my problems. Whereas in the past, I always chose to shelve it for tomorrow. And tomorrow never came until sheriff stepped in. Fancy love letters started coming, letters of demand. That's when even that never gave me the wake-up call. The wake-up call to me only came when I lost everything. And all I could say today to all those that's got this problem, please don't go down the road that I went. Because today's accessibility regarding gambling, far worse than when I was in active addiction. I'm thankful. It's 11 years, 7 months, and almost, what's the date? And 10 days. 11 years, 7 months, and 10 days since I last placed a bet. I'm living the most amazing life today. I don't look over my shoulders. I don't hesitate to answer my phone like in the days because I'm worried. What am I going to tell Peter? I don't have an answer. Today I walk free with no hidden agenda because I've taken accountability of my actions. Not an easy one. It's a hard road, but it's a road that one day anybody would say, I am so thankful I walked this path. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, absolutely, Poobie. I think it is a fantastic way to sign off. Your worst day in recovery is still better than your best day in addiction or your best day gambling. I think that's a wonderful way to sign off. And
Can I just highlight what I mean by that to those that may not understand it, not being disrespectful.
of course.
Okay, when I say that, as I said, I've encountered many setbacks, some very serious ones, whilst in recovery. On the other hand, in active addiction, I've attained some awesome days. What was that? the days that I had won. Again, I go back. Did I share it with loved ones? No. I chose to hide it so I can feed my habit tomorrow. What was the outcome? I lost it. So what was that happiness? It was just momentary, as in
Yes.
just for that moment in time, because I gave it back the next day or 2 days later. Whereas today, the little that I have, I can proudly stand up and say, hey, this is my $100. It belongs to me. It's not borrowed. It's not a temporary loan, which was the winnings that I encountered in the past. So yeah, for those, again, with no disrespect, that's exactly what I mean. Today with my setbacks, my challenges, I hit it head on. And there's times where I can't, I choose to let go and let God. And because of the path of honesty, He comes in and fills in those blanks. And I want to end by this. God works in mysterious ways. Addiction has got nothing to do with religion either. It's about the God of your understanding. And I believe if we walk this path with honesty, and nothing but honesty, no hidden agenda, He does come in. He's done it for me. He's done it for millions of others. What's wrong with you? Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Poobie. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Not so fast. It is such a cool feeling when I see that Spotify subscribers number increase on the weekly, when I see the number of people listening to the episodes going up, and it really makes a huge difference. Have you ever done something and you feel so good when you get rewarded by some positive feedback and you really feel like you're making a difference? That's what it means to me, and that's how I feel. And it goes a long way. If you like the show, share it and subscribe it. Thank you humbly, and I'll see you next week.